Hey folks, it is February the 26th, and today we're talking about chapter 128 that mostly has to do with the Reformation under Henry VIII of England. And so we're going to discuss that a little bit. The students in the classroom are going to help me out with the following terms: the young Henry VIII, Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Parliament, Edward VI, and Mary as a Mary Tudor. And we're going to come back on Monday and see a bit more, but we might finish the book before spring break, so we'll see.
I think I'm shorter than I am. Yeah.
All right, kids. So let me go ahead and show you what I got real quick, and then I'm going to turn y'all loose up here. So despite this painting, Henry VIII was actually a very fit, athletic guy when he was young, right? In fact, one thing he was into two things. He was into wrestling and he was into jousting. Yeah. And he would compete in jousting and wrestling. We talked about it before in the past, but the King of France at this time was King Francis I. And if you remember, he's that guy we talked about who was the King of France who stood up to the Pope whenever he was trying to gain political power over France. Well, Henry VIII saw him as a rival, and he even insulted him. But Francis actually invited him over to this magnificent tournament, right? And so in this tournament, Francis actually, hey, can y'all stop interrupting? Y'all's time will talk, we'll come back, but it's not right now. There's a time and a place for it. All right, so he Francis actually made a small city for this tournament to be held. And it's called the Tournament of the Golden Cloth. And so he invited Henry over, and they went over to essentially this festival city that the King of France made. They had giant tents. They had a zoo. They had all kinds of different events from racing, jousting, mock warfare, and all these other things. Lots of feasting. And Francis actually defeated Henry in both jousting and wrestling, but they became good friends after that. But and they both declared that they were going to make an alliance, a friendship between the two countries. But unfortunately, Francis I wound up dying in a jousting bout. He got a splinter from one of the lances in his eye, and it went to his brain. And then apparently he don't live well after that. And so Henry lost his good friend and went home. Henry he was actually a staunch Catholic at first, when it was convenient. And he actually wrote a book debating the principles of Martin Luther, telling him why he needed to respect Catholic sacraments and things of that matter, to stay within the church, and how he was just being a rebel. But as we saw in our readings, Henry was married to Catherine of Aragon, and she was a Spanish princess, and she was related to Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, the guy who owned most of the known world at that time. Well, Henry was, over time, they had been married for almost 20 years. They had a daughter, but he was really obsessive about having a prince who could take over his crown. And so they tried and tried and tried, and it never worked out. And so he was being a man of scientific reasoning, he said it must be her fault. So he filed for a divorce. Well, the way it worked in the Catholic Church is that they didn't recognize divorce. They recognized something called annulment. And an annulment has to be proving not that you have reasons to divorce, but that the marriage wasn't valid in the first place. The Pope refused that, mostly because he didn't want to make the emperor mad. Henry got very agitated. And so he said, forget it. I'll just make my own church. Forget you, Pope guy. And so he's going to divorce, I think, Is this Catherine? Oh, no, it's one of them. And he's going to have 6 wives total. He's going to divorce Catherine and have her beheaded for treason because she speaks out against him. This almost caused a rebellion because she was very, very deeply loved by the peasants. She was known as being very charitable and kind to poor people. She would always speak up for their rights and things like that. And instead, Henry will marry his mistress, Anne Boleyn. Well, after he marries her, they're going to have another daughter, but eventually they're going to have a child that's going to be born deformed, and he's going to declare her, she must be a witch, and so he's going to have her beheaded. And then he's going to go through quite a few more wives until he finally ends up on his last one, and he'll let her live. So he's kind of a serial wife murderer, is one thing he's known for. And so when he's not beheading wives, he's also making laws that are outlawing free speech, the ability to criticize him, and also the Catholic Church to own property. So they're going to use his military to empty out the monasteries, to imprison priests and people going to Catholic Church. It's going to be a time of persecution and executions. He's going to take a lot of their wealth and he's going to give it to friends who choose to support him. And he's going to form what's known as the Anglican Church. That's the English Royal Church. For all intents and purposes, it was just like the Catholic Church. It just didn't have a pope. Really, that was the only difference. Eventually, like Henry VIII, he's going to get more and more health problems as he ages. He's going to have diabetes, health problems. He's overweight. He can't even go to the restroom by himself. He's going to have a royal servant known as the Master of the Stools, who even has to help him go to the bathroom. He's going to get crippled. I'll have all kinds of nasty health problems. And eventually he's going to die. And he will have a son, however, from one of his wives, and that's going to be Edward VI. Edward VI is largely going to be raised by Protestant ministers, so essentially by preachers. He's going to be a very devout, Lutheran-style young man, and he's going to want to push England in that direction. He doesn't rule for long, but while he does, the Anglican Church is going to become more and more less and less Catholic, I guess you could say. Like a lot of the smells and bells and the rituals and all that start going away. But he doesn't last too long. He's going to die at an early age. And his sister, the daughter, Henry's first daughter, under Catherine of Aragon, is going to become queen. She is going to try to return the country back to Catholicism. But the thing is, she's going to make a big mistake. She's not going to suppress the press. And so while she's doing things like arresting people for their religion, they're writing swaths of books about the bad things she did. And so she's going to be deeply villainized and hated within England. She's going to understand this and be super depressed. She's going to marry the King of Spain, but he's so disinterested in her, he only visited her like 2 times. And like apparently her personal diary is just like day after day, she's just completely miserable that she doesn't have any kids. Nobody likes her. So she's going to have a very, very sad life. She's going to go down known as Bloody Mary because of all the bad press against her for religious persecution. And then eventually after her, we're going to go to Elizabeth I, who we'll talk about later during the age of Shakespeare and all that stuff. So, we'll go back to the field of golden cloth. All right, kids. So Henry VIII, he did do a lot of things. He tried to build a big navy, didn't work out. When he flirted with the idea of exploring America, wound up not really doing it. He had a lot of ideas that never really came into fruition. He spent a lot of his time just feasting, drinking, and chasing women, and then cut their heads off. So he's known for having extreme temper issues, surprisingly enough. So he had a lot of flaws. So that brings us to our following terms. So if the first one up there, the young Henry VIII, if you could come up and write down a little information about it. Remember, brevity is a good thing. We'll keep it brief and keep it good.
All right. So the second tutor and
It must be nice when it's all of us to reach that.
Hooray.
it really is. Pretty nice. Oh crap! I can't spell. Second tutor and
No, not all.
I've never been told. I've
So it was just like, I've never experienced that.
never
Only
experienced
time
that.
I've experienced that, when I walk past a room with kids.
I mean, not wrong.
I mean, she literally one day was just like,
Gotta do that.
look, guys, I'm taller than them. I'm sitting here like, they're first graders.
Gotta say, believe we're about to get it.
I know.
But also selfish. Very.
Thank you.
Let's stop at that. Selfish. Oh my god.
I mean.
Also selfish. And cruel. Lustful.
I couldn't even find one that scared me.
Hey, what we got here? All right. Young Henry VIII. The second tutor was handsome, athletic, well-educated, also selfish, lustful, and cruel. Tisk, tisk, tisk. All right. So, yeah, sounds about right. Hey, how about the next one? Poor, tragic Catherine of Baragon. She tried to do everything right, and her husband killed her. So, who's got that one?
Kelly.
Kelly, come on up here.
You can do it, Kelly.
Hold on, I don't like mistresses. That should be in your book club. So everybody was a mistress. This is like you.
What?
What do you call them?
Let's see here. So,
Like mistresses.
How about this?
Different.
It was so long, so apart.
Gotta be the list.
All in a one girl will be together.
yeah, we do that one.
What?
What do you call?
Yes.
What do you call them? Mistress?
Definitely
Mister?
My sister.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely that one.
And then,
That little box.
Oh my God. Like what?
I used it for.
What if you like have a husband team?
Are you
That-
about my street?
Still a lever.
That should be a
I mean,
better.
unless he's really, you know, he's a mistress.
No.
It's like a little flirt. It's like
well, Aaron,
Smell the perfume.
a.
This smells smoke.
Gotta do Cromwell. Commonwealth.
no.
Bring it back.
I did
Like
that.
that song. Ever since the
I
song,
thought
you
you were
like
kidding.
put me on your side.
No, girl. Yeah, big fit.
No, yes.
Probably gonna skip that
I
one.
don't know if you.
I think I'm like the less than you.
You already know the level. Like 3,000 high.
Do that
Five.
What's up?
I give you consent.
You probably should call me.
She always does.
You're in truth.
I wonder all this will.
She's tired of me, yeah.
I wonder all this will. Yeah, I get on my nerves because I be trying to read your notes and sniffles when they do comments. Like every time you do the phone, I don't get
Money, here,
I
here.
think y'all like, you also like you just been on your
No.
like everything. No, I just feel like my mind's like.
Dog.
There's like,
Look,
yeah.
look,
I got it.
look, oh, Elijah. Wait, those shots. There it goes.
Wow.
Oh, this.
I think we'll be done with this book the week after spring break. I think. And then, I don't have another textbook, so. All right, Catherine of Aragon. She was the aunt of Emperor Charles V, Henry's older brother. Henry divorced her after 18 years. No, she didn't love Anne Boleyn. No, she had nothing but contempt for the woman who stole her husband. Yeah, you guys get rid of that part. Yeah, she wasn't in love with the woman who was convincing her husband to take her head off.
She wasn't in love with one who.
That'd be kind of morbid.
Yeah.
It's all right. We forgive you. There we go.
The wrist.
That's good enough. Hey, all right. Speaking of Anne Boleyn, so and she was a very ambitious woman. She wanted to be queen so bad she could taste it. Hey, who has Anne Boleyn? Oh, okay, cool.
His knees.
Yeah, look.
But like the outfits are like it's not done like so right, like the shirts might touch him.
Oh, that's
You can do it.
You know me.
I think that's like a way to get rid of his entire.
I bet I can do it.
Well, I already know.
They might be short.
Someday you'll be saying,
Hey guys, gals, are y'all getting your notes down? They're writing stuff down for y'all, you know, like y'all can whisper, y'all get loud. Yeah, she had a daughter. I think so. And that would be Elizabeth later on. We'll talk about her maybe next week. No, it'd be the week after spring break, I think, maybe. It's weird.
Stop, Eric. I can have one, girl.
I'm just.
I think
Like,
Big opportunity.
Hey folks, we're still streaming over here. Yep, Henry wanted a son.
just said that before.
Yeah, that was lower. How my life is going right now. Yeah. Is it when I get to school? Or going home and then when I get home? I was home like, so it's not. Is it alone? When I get to school?
it's hard to describe my life. When I'm alone, the song will describe myself. Because I really be in my room like, I really it was like me yelling out heartbreak songs when I haven't even been heartbroken. It was like in a relationship.
Well, looks like I have no space to write.
And we'll make it.
says be brief, be brief. I'm on that.
That was such harsh criticism.
It's okay.
And Colin's like, Colin's saying like, so you don't do it.
A lot of people. Colin is rude.
Honestly, really are.
I'm just gonna.
It's fun. Yeah, so Anne Boleyn, his mistress, he wanted a son, but his wife only gave him a daughter. So he linked up with Anne Boleyn, who kind of did the same thing. All right, next one. So Parliament. There's a couple of important laws there. Tyrannical laws.
Can I like write it over? No, I can't.
You can stretch it out. You can make it out if you need to, whatever you need, whatever you're comfortable with.
What was that?
I think what I'll do is
You already stroking something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Auntie, you're a little undercar.
What is that, folks?
She's like, Colin, how do you think here? Gotta bug it in. My girl was in
Listen.
I'm sorry for whoever has Edward, but I'm gonna have to roll a little bit.
Do what you gotta
He races that whole Twitter race here. Right? That's good.
Nice.
We won't start this thing.
Because they're coming up with these. It's like, I don't know why. Maybe I'm just emotional.
Oh, yeah, you only got-
That's what you
Let's say action.
Bottle phone.
I can't think of.
That's it, yeah. Hey, very good. Yeah, so Parliament. So Henry used Parliament to give him supreme power, like all the government's now under the king pretty much. And he also outlawed anyone who went to a different church or say anything bad about him. So to oppose the king is death. All right, next one. Young Edward VI.
We did it. Yeah.
Started writing.
Yeah, I was like, why not? If you
So remember, y'all synthesize.
I can't reach the floor.
All I heard was reach forward.
I can't reach.
Bo, are you okay? Are you a ninja?
Yes.
Okay. Or a masked milkmaid?
Oh,
There you go.
Look at my.
That is mine. The mask.
She was
I'm gonna
twisted.
put that in the
She
shop.
said,
I bet you-
like, she did it fast. Like, no, she did it fast. She was like, "Fuck, I spelled that." Yeah, she did that. She did that. Walk, twist her house.
I can hear it.
Girl, I can't get. Yeah, because they were like, really slow, like, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Made progress in England with religion, translated Latin books into English. Last one, Mary Tudor. Hey, last one. Okay, you got it? Okay, good. We're gonna do it. Most friendly.
I don't even remember some of your stories from sixth grade. What color is
Oh, no, it's seventh.
Oh, my two favorite colors, yay!
What's up?
There ain't no dying.
I'm not getting on my knees.
And don't.
Take it off.
I like it.
I hate you. Take it
I
off.
don't know. I mean, like infinite pain. You feel like boxes.
Dude, the Tiffany.
Although you're the face. I'm bold.
No, bro.
You say 6'1".
That's not the word I was saying.
Oh my God. Is it 345? Is it a 191? I can't remember. I think it's like 5.7. All I know is it's big and it goes. I could beat you the race. I said, man, you got like a little 5.3 here.
The orchestra is strictly just.
Robert, stop humming. Jeez.
He said stop.
You remember they said my phone is like you.
Oh, that's good.
That's one right there.
So
I'll run his blood.
The what?
Dude, he's got probably no.
Girl, it's like.
Dude, I easily.
Very good. So Mary, daughter of Catherine of Baragon, Henry VIII, married Philip of Spain, son of Charles V. Severely persecuted Protestants, died after ruling 5 years with no kids. Sad times, sad times. So that does it for today. We are going to skip a couple of chapters before we reach the end, but I'll let you know what those are later. But we're going to hit it again next week. Talk to you later, kids.
So, is the lockdown bill done or something?
They didn't send an email